How's everybody doing today? Loving this? Giant crowd. I've never been to a FinOps X before, and I was in that main room, and I was like, there are a lot of practitioners. This is a crazy place to be, and I love it. Like they said in there, I talk to people, friends, family, whatever. I'm like, I do FinOps, and they're like, I have no idea what that is, and it's great to be here. Be like, hey, I do FinOps. Everyone's like, yeah, so do we. It's great. So this is my presentation. It's just how to use your FinOps tools and practices to control licensing costs. I love that during the keynote, two different people talked about this. We had folks from Walmart up there telling you, hey, OpenAI costs a bunch of money. You need to be able to control that, and I'll be talking about that. And then JR talked about the focus standard and how useful that's going to be in the future for ingesting SaaS tools into your various FinOps tools, and I'll be talking about that too. So, brief note on Expedia Group. So a lot of people, I tell them that I work at Expedia, and they're like, oh, Expedia.com, I know that website. So Expedia owns actually a bunch of travel websites. There's like 22 brands within Expedia. We also do a bunch of white label products for various companies out there. So we power a huge amount of the travel industry. It was founded in 1996 and currently has, like I said, 20 brands, 200 sites. We're in 70 countries. If you see our cloud kind of presence there, we're creating 800 billion AI predictions every single year and 70 petabytes of data. So we're definitely very heavily into the cloud. And then we have 20,000 employees and 24,000 applications. That becomes relevant when it just talks about basically being able to control those costs and how many application teams we're trying to work across. All right, so audience interaction. Put your hand up if you've ever made a mistake at work. All right, keep your hand up if your boss found out about that mistake before you did. Okay, so still a few people. How many people did that potentially cost the company $3.3 million? Just me? All right. So that's how I ended up putting my licensing cost into FinOps tools, and we'll get into that story a little bit later. So this is where Expedia Group is at in our FinOps journey. We did have a small team of engineers back in 2019. We started getting this big, massive curve from Amazon, and it's got 158 million resources listed on it, and obviously no human being can look at that, and the company said, what do we do? So they turned to literally 4 data product engineers and said, figure this out. If you notice, 2019, also the same year that FinOps.org became a thing. So they went to the website and they're like, this is amazing. This is custom built for what we're trying to do right now. So they started implementing FinOps practices, but in a very, very small corner of the company. In 2010, or 2020, they added a visualization layer. So at first, it was just a massive data product that you could query directly through like SQL queries. 2020, they added the visualization layer. 2021, they added in ML predictions to figure out what costs were going to look like at the end of the month, at the end of the year, whatever. 2022, they added chargebacks kind of across the company, and also we call it alerts. Come to find out there's a FinOps term, and it's anomaly detection. So we added that, and then this year we're adding in forecasting and also moving, like I said, into licensing costs more. How did I get here? So I did 20 years in naval intelligence. I actually just retired from the Navy last year, but I built a pretty solid backing in taking data, turning it into information, and turning that into intelligence and presenting it to large groups of people. Then got my MBA as I was exiting the Navy and picked up a job as a product manager at Expedia Group inside of data and AI. My VP was trying to forecast our cloud spend for the year. I was like, well, you have an Intel background for analysis and you have an MBA. Can you please figure out how much we're going to spend in the cloud? So I did that. He was pretty happy with it. I will say that I'm pretty proud of the fact that my department's cloud forecast to this day is accurate, like 8 months later. And then he said, can you do the licensing forecast? So during the pandemic, we had the opportunity to not basically sell any reservations for a year. And while we were not doing that, we decided to consolidate all of our licenses across Expedia Group. So we had operated basically as 22 independent brands on 22 separate tech stacks. And we knew that that was not the best way to run, but we hadn't really had the opportunity to take that strategic pause before. So once we had that opportunity handed to us, we consolidated all of our licenses, which was really good, and we saved a bunch of money doing it, accessing volume-based discounts. And then the next year, we were like, well, can we save any more in licensing? And so took a look at all of the tools and found any like overlap, right? Not just multiple agreements with one company, right? That was the original consolidation. This was just finding out, like, do we need all of these tools? Turns out we didn't, got rid of a bunch. But then we were trying to figure out, how do we save more money, right? Like, how do we cut costs a little bit more? And the only thing that's left is to minimize your usage. So, I know that you're all FinOps practitioners in here, but why does FinOps exist? So this is straight from the FinOps Foundation. They say that it's critical to every business, but it's a fundamentally different consumption model for the following reasons. It is decentralized, it is variable, and it's scalable. That used to be true. When the cloud came around, it was the first thing to really give the opportunity for a developer to create a lot of costs with very little control while innovating. But that was leading to finance trying to get their business leaders to cut spending. Business leaders just want budget, right? They just want to build stuff and be left alone. And developers just want to create. They don't want to think about this, right? They want to build cool stuff and just leave them alone. And so everybody's getting micromanaged, nobody's happy. FinOps comes in, creates this aura of collaboration around cloud spend, which is amazing. Business leaders have spending autonomy, right? Like they submit their forecasts, but as long as they're within their forecasts, it's generally expected that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Finance is super happy because it actually improved forecasting and optimized our spending, and I will continue to hit that. We optimized spending, we did not cut costs. We take that money and reinvest it in innovation. So everybody's self-managed, everybody's happy, which is great for the cloud. But now we move into licensing. So as I was digging through the tranche of all the data and AI tools that we had for licensing, there were a couple of different types of SaaS licenses. The old stuff is all unit-based, right? Like how many users do you want to install this for? It's super easy to control. You could basically just create like an e-commerce checkout system and it'd be like, this money is now getting charged to your business unit, done. But we've actually seen a dramatic shift in the way that SaaS is charging back. So SaaS more and more is charging back on this usage-based model, which I've broken into kind of two groups here, which is per use variable cost and step variable cost. Kind of amounts to the same thing, but just understanding that there are absolutely things that it's like, okay, as it grows, and you need a new cluster, it's going to increase. So it won't necessarily be by per use, but it will kind of scale out, in those steps. But either way, you end up in kind of the same situation where users are siloed from finance, but they can create cost just by using the product. It's obviously variable based on not so much per user per machine, but that variability of cost that allows you to change your spend based on every time you click a button. And it's scalable, which is awesome. It allows you to innovate, but you can easily overuse these tools. This is what kind of got me into trouble here. So talking about AI tools. Everybody loves AI. AI is amazing. I don't know if you have iPhones, check out the Expedia app. ChatGPT is right in there and will help you plan your next trip. It's super cool. Users already love it. We're still innovating on it. It's like the first version of this, but we got that in there 2 months ago. We were first to market with a travel AI tool. And our CTO, super excited about it because once again, bringing value to customers, which is what we're trying to do, said, hey, everybody needs to be experimenting with AI. Let's get this, let's get more of this value out to customers using these AI tools, which is awesome. And everybody loves to innovate, right? So they're out there playing around with these tools. They're super cool tools to play with. But they cost money. So OpenAI has usage-based pricing. This is straight off their website. It's all public domain. And this isn't all of their prices, but I'm just going to point out that if you look at it, you can pay for different levels of services at different variable rate prices. They do it by tokens. I always basically say we pay per character. I know that's not technically true, but it's a really easy way to simplify it. So you're basically paying per character that you send in, per character that you receive. So because of that, one user who was experimenting created $9,000 in daily costs based on his experiment. So we potentially had $3.3 million a year that we were going to spend on this tool that we had completely not forecasted. And sitting in a room, my boss, actually my boss's boss's boss, turned and said, "Charlie, what happened here?" And I looked at the room of these data and AI expert engineers, was like, "Hey guys, like, yeah, we had a plan, right, for how we were going to control this." And everybody looked at me, and I was like, I was supposed to have a plan for how to control this. So, very quickly scrambling, I happen to have lucked out that I am already the product manager for the cost transparency team, managing cloud cost. And I was like, well, I actually don't see the difference between this and the cloud. So, what we did now, I will say we have a custom implementation of FinOps, right? We built this thing in 2019. I'm not going to say that your third-party tools all have this capability, but I assume that they do. At the end of the day, all of our FinOps tools, all they do is take cost and divide by usage and send it back to the user, right? Like, I mean, there's a bunch of complexity in there, but that's basically what it comes down to. Licensing costs will work the exact same way. And so, for us, we built a pass-through layer before you access ChatGPT or various other AI tools. And instead of going directly to those APIs, you go through our pass-through layer, and we can, you register using your application name, and then it tracks your usage and reports it back into our FinOps tools. So we just take our ChatGPT bill, divide it out exactly by applications, pass it up the hierarchy like we do every other cloud cost, and now they are forecasting their own ChatGPT spend and are responsible for it. So we're back to the ability to innovate without having strong financial controls that are blocking that innovation, right? It's all based on you make your business case, and you get a budget, and you spend within the budget. Please spend within the budget. So this goes back to the principles of FinOps. Teams need to collaborate. We're back in the same spot. Absolutely, you have your development teams that are playing with your licensing tools, that are talking to the finance teams daily to make sure that the forecasts are right, to make sure that usage looks right, to make sure that there's anomaly detection in place, and to control that spend. Everyone owns their own usage. We're charging everything back. Everything goes back to the individual applications. They have their own requirements in place for what they're spending and why, and we don't need to be responsible for that. They explained it a year ago. It didn't change now. Just continue controlling your spend in the same way. Centralized team driving licenses. This gives us the ability to, once again, now that we have all of this tracked as a per-use measure, it improves our forecasting across all of our licensing costs. And so when the procurement team comes up at the end of the year, they're not kind of guessing at how many of these licenses they're going to use. They have firm data to work off of, and it improves their ability to work with these vendors to get the best volume-based licensing deal. Reports to be accurate and timely. I think that applies to literally everything. Yeah, I mean, telling that guy that spent $9,000 a day at the end of the year that he racked up $3.3 million, that's going to be a problem, right? He's definitely not going to be able to pay that bill at that point. Decisions driven by business value, same deal. Every one of these, we have forecasting tools, because once we understand what things look like, in terms of when somebody deploys something, how much spend it incurs across these various applications, these SaaS applications, we can forecast what potential costs will look like for greenfield projects or whatever else. So it's part of our total cost of ownership calculator, and teams, when they pitch a greenfield project or even like a new feature that they're going to add in, they know what not only their cloud costs are going to look like, but also what the licensing cost is that's going to ride on. and take advantage of variable cost models. Same thing with the ChatGPT, right? They have GPT-4 and 3.5. Everybody's like, I really want 4. I'm not gonna flip back to that slide, but it is way more expensive than 3.5. And if you don't need, GPT-4 to drive customer value, then you can stay within your budget more easily by switching over to GPT 3.5, shifting your usage over to there. So this is Cloud FinOps, right? This is the definition we all know and love. It's on the website. It's fantastic. It very much explains what FinOps does. I say that, and then I send it to my family. I'm like, this is what I'm doing. And they're like, these words don't mean things. It's super fun for me. Mom wants to know what you do, right? But I think it's wrong. I think that if you just take 2 words out of this definition, you'll see that it applies to every type of cost that you are incurring while developing software. It's not Cloud FinOps, it's just FinOps. You can control all your costs within this single framework and within the same sets of tools that you're already paying for. And with 9:40 left, I'm done.
That's awesome. Thanks, Charlie. And would you all believe Charlie was nervous about his talk? Can we give him another round of applause? I think he did great. So I had to share that, Charlie.
Thank you so much.
I will tell you, I loved the fact that not only did you talk about licensing, but you also talked about AI. It was great. Let's open it up to Q&A. This year we're going to do something a little different. Rather than me running around with the microphone, we have a foam cube. Now this cube, I have thrown it at 10 of my colleagues, and only 1 got hurt. So 9 out of 10 people do not get hurt with this. So who wants to start us off with questions and receive the cube? All right, here you go.
I'm just saying, man, you're throwing stuff in a room full of tech and finance people. I just pointing that out. Yeah. Hey.
Different variety.
So like I said, I happened to get a little bit lucky in that the team had already developed an amazing data product that ingests every type of cost and usage that you could imagine and had an API to pull that in. But yeah, so as you do this, like regardless of what overall FinOps tool you pick, and there's a bunch of people out there that really want to solve FinOps for you as just a service, right? But just making sure that as you go to your SaaS providers, you work out with them that there's the ability to report usage. And I'm gonna say this, I'm super excited about the focus standard. I've been telling internal teams that are doing chargebacks, I've been telling all of our vendors, like, if you wanna get money, you need to be billing in the focus standard because I'm instrumenting all of our stuff to ingest that and only that. We're not gonna be custom building your API ingestion anymore. But as you talk to your SaaS providers, tell them, hey, I wanna be able to pull this into my financial tools. What is your billing format? Is it in focus? And then as you get your providers for your FinOps tools, same thing. Are you ingesting anything that comes in the focus standard? And I think that as you're setting up from the ground up, I think that it's a good time to do it. Just the fact that, we're at version 0.5, but version 1.0 I'm sure is gonna be awesome for you for that.
Thanks. So how has the role of procurement evolved within your FinOps group, right? So if you're helping to solve a lot of, I'll just say, the usage and the licensing, which historically was, right, a central procurement team, has it changed? Is vendor management more part of, because as you showed, right, any cost, right, can fit this model. So are you doing more than just managing the cloud costs as part of your FinOps team and taking in all these other pieces, or how has that evolved or set up today?
Yeah, so we have a smallish, it's a big company, but in reference to the company, it's small. We have a small group of like the FinOps team, and they're absolutely like just focused on cloud right now. Our plan is, we've only ingested 4 licenses so far, because without the focus standard, everything's a custom implementation. But as we roll more in, yeah, the plan is that we're going to manage it all in the exact same way. And though the procurement is using our tools, using the output, right? Because we're very focused on like the visibility of it, using the output of our tools to drive their procurement process as far as volume numbers. And so it's made their lives easier, but we haven't necessarily started wrapping them into the cycle of it all.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions?
Easy catch. Where are you outside of licensing and other types of TCO-related costs like support, maintenance, labor?
Yeah, so whatever, my finance guys will be like, hey, Charlie, don't talk about that. So my eventual goal within our same tools, we use a tool for, I don't know, tracking our hours, time card management, essentially. And it separates everything. You put what project you were working on for how many hours. My eventual goal for our tools is basically to take that same personnel cost and ingest. So once again, I've got all the cloud stuff. It's good. Licensing stuff is getting there. A year from now, not today, we're going to ingest all the headcount stuff and start applying it in the same way. And so eventually, it's going to be all the three real, I mean, I know that there's marketing spend and everything else, but the three pillars of actual software cost, it's all going to be ingested in the same tool, and it's all going to get charged back in the same ways. So that's why I say licensing and other costs is that eventually headcount will be a part of that. We're just not there yet.
Other questions? Yeah.
You mentioned that you're ingesting 4 times of
Yeah, so he was asking which 4 licenses I'm ingesting, basically. Yeah. Right, yeah, so his question was, what are the 4, you said types of license, but I was saying that we're ingesting 4 licenses specifically. And honestly, because I haven't got that approved as far as who we're using, the only one that I can really, we're definitely ingesting OpenAI. Yeah, but we're also ingesting like our OLAP engines. So we're ingesting their usage, right? And we're ingesting our stream provider, so that usage as well. You can do it with anything. It's just, like I said, without the focused billing standard, each one of them, we're having to work out like, how do you charge this? And like create that logic in our product. Once focus is a thing, and once I really make people do it, hopefully it'll just be all of them overnight.
We got a question over here, and then we'll come back.
And hi.
Yep.
So your answer might have answered this, but I'm not on the technical side, so forgive me if I'm asking you to repeat it. But you were showing usage-based ones, but there's also like they're usage-based, but like server-based licenses, things like that. Are you ingesting any of those yet, or are you looking more for it's a little less variable spend, but still every time someone puts up a server, licenses.
So that's what I was referring to when I said stepped variable, is specifically those ones. Every time that we have to, fire off a new cluster, we have to add a license. So like, it's not like a straight line, but it's like, okay, you can keep building usage, and then once you hit time for a new cluster, you have now added cost to us, so.
But I wanted to follow up on this.
Right. Yeah, so he was saying that like some of the SaaS licenses come in like small, medium, large, right? Like you don't have to, and whether like that kind of factors into how we're managing it, and it absolutely does. Like whether the picking the right sizes and whatnot. Like our eventual goal, speaking kind of back to the bringing the licensing kind of procurement side into the FinOps cycle with the rest of us, like 100%. We're trying to get to the point where we're saying, hey, are we sizing these things correctly? Because as we're sending them back to people, chargebacks, if you guys aren't doing chargebacks solve so much. If all your charges go onto your neighbor's credit card, like you you don't actually care no matter how much he talks to you about it. You don't care how much you're spending on that thing. Like, chargebacks solve a lot, and so by charging back those costs, the users are seeing which level they're using, and if there's underutilization issues or whatever, then it's kind of on them to work with procurement to resize what they're using, but it is a consideration. Just this being more nascent, we haven't gotten to the point where I could say, like, here's my very defined process for that.
I think we have time for a couple more questions. Anyone? Up the front. Front's not.
Yeah, it's like the front's awful for the
cube. So we'll do the mic, okay?
Thanks so much for the talk today. I really appreciate the unified approach, making us a common tool which will ingest all of this stuff. So I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you, just out of curiosity, have you faced any cultural challenges in terms of, one is trying to consolidate siloed efforts in terms of tooling, and secondly, getting people, individual teams and leadership to look at the tooling and the reports that are generated from the tools. I inferred that it's treated as an assumption that FinOps is working well, processes are all in place, but I just want to understand, through the journey that you showed, was there a point where you had to increase the adoption on some of the tools that you were talking about?
Cool. So I will also say that none of these speakers face me, and the door's open, so I'm going to address exactly as much of that as I really caught. But one of the things he said was like getting people to adopt, like looking at the reports and actioning them, right? Okay, cool. So Expedia is an older company, but we're still very much looking to innovate regularly. And so I tell people all the time, like, FinOps as a whole is not designed to, nobody's allowed to say cost cutting, right? We're not here for cost cutting, right? We're here for cost optimization, and Expedia kind of holds true to that. So as we find savings, right, a percentage of any optimization that a team actions goes back to that team for almost no questions asked, like reinvestment into other stuff that they want to be working on. And so that is a heavy driver for these teams, that as they know that, well, if I save $1 million this year, I could take 500, on this license that we don't really need, I could take 500,000 of that and get some more headcount, or buy this other license that I would like, or whatever, and finance. While there is like a process still, like you can't just like have untracked spending, that money does go back into their budget for the purpose of reinvestment in innovation. So yeah, they're very excited to use it. You're right in front of the speaker. It's like the worst possible.
So, what did you do?
That's great. Yeah.
What did you do?
I'm in Austin. Just yeah. So there you go. Yeah. Yeah.
What did you do to get the business to adopt? So a lot of times the business talks about how IT is a money hound, and so they don't want to look at how they're impacting IT budget based on their needs. If you're doing a chargeback, I get that, but how did you get the business to agree?
So the structure of Expedia, we happen to like, our CTO Rathi is a large part of like, I mean, she was the one that's driving this, right? So, they talk in the FinOps book about like where should FinOps sit, and like should it sit under the CFO. The nice thing about it falling under the CTO is that like the engineers are super excited to do it. Also, Rathi, is driving the majority. I mean, the majority of our budget goes through her anyway. And so getting her on board with it, like, because she wants innovation and she wants, to not spend more money to innovate, to spend the same money to innovate. Like, it was a pretty easy sell for her, honestly. But yeah, it's just, it all comes down to the company wants to save money, and speaking to like the benefits earlier of like, oh, if you offer money to people to like save money, you will never spend more on those benefits than you do on the money you save in the cloud. It's the same for this. Like giving the money back to the teams, a percentage still goes back to the company for investments in other areas. So it's a win-win for everybody.
Thanks for watching that session. I'm sitting here in San Diego right after FinOps X. We hope you join us next year here live 2024. In the meantime, please subscribe to the channel and join the community. Get involved, join the summits, get in a working group, and don't forget to get FinOps certified. Because next year here in San Diego for FinOps X, it's going to be twice as big. Come join the party. Come meet your people. Welcome home.